I can see Kansas making a very good run.
Yeah, well, see, that's my thing about them. They are right now pretty much, I think, at their ceiling of what they can be. Like Bill Self has got them playing great. They've won 6 of the
Yeah.
last 7. They've been awesome defensively over that stretch. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they played like Iowa State and Kansas State in a couple of those games, to be fair. But the only loss they have is at Texas in overtime, and like there's no shame in losing at Texas in overtime. They beat Baylor, so I think right about now, like they're peaking at the right time. I think they're done with conference play. This is it. They peaked at the right time. So
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you, with this team specifically, like it's always good to like, I know I always felt like this, like I'd rather get my losses and everything out of the way, like toward the early February and stuff like that. And then be ready to start, like you said, peaking around this time. Do you feel like this team, this Kansas team can go deep in the tournament, even with this roster the way it is, like as long as they know themselves? Like they don't have to be like they don't have to be any other team. I mean, the style that they have right now is pretty simple. And if it works and they're comfortable just playing that and playing within themselves and just sticking to these things that they've been doing. Granted, the competition has been, besides this game, has been a little bit lower than usual. I will agree, but
I mean, sometimes that helps, like sometimes you need to beat up on an Iowa State to be able to get your confidence and figure out the shit that you need to be able to do.
Exactly.
You're not gonna, if you're struggling a little bit playing against West Virginia and playing against Baylor and playing against some of the best, like Oklahoma, like you're not going to be able to figure out what you're doing wrong and get it right and get into that rhythm playing against some of the best teams in the country. It's just that, like, that's not how it works. Now,
it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
Got their confidence right. They figured it. They figured out what they were doing. They got their reps in. They're peaking at the right time. For me, like I think that they're good enough to be able to make a run. I think it's one of those situations where it all kind of comes down to matchups for them. Because I don't think that they don't have that. David McCormick's their go-to guy, but they don't have that star, right? Like
I agree. That's what I said. I don't know if that's their guy.
Dave McCormick's been great, but like this is the best that we're going to see David McCormick be. And he's also very limited in the sense that he has to have people kind of set, like you're not giving it to him toe fruit to the basket and saying, go make something happen. You could do that with Luka Garza a little bit and Drew Timme a little bit.
He's not like Embiid. It has to be like a setup play where he gets that.
Yes, he's getting his stuff out of like the offense that Bill Self is running results in David McCormick getting a duck in off of this action. And that's where, and they're able to get it to him because they create the angle to get whatever they create the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I never really trust teams to go that far that don't have great point guards. Like I'm not going to just like bet on them to make it to the Final Four if you don't have a great point guard. But I mean, they really, really defend. It's Bill Self, and they've figured out who they are. And at the end of the day, like that's really important, right? Be well coached, be able to know who you are, understand your own scouting report more than anything else, and execute your offense. And you're basically going to be who you're supposed to be. So if they end up, I would guess they end up like a 4 seed.
Mm-hmm. I think they had him at a 3 before that game even started.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they get to the second weekend. I don't know if they're beating any of the best teams from the Big Ten. I don't think that they're. If Baylor figures it out, like I think that Baylor's still in a different stratosphere from them.
Yeah,
Zaga obviously is. We already saw that matchup, but like I mean, Kansas can get to a second weekend and figure it out from there, and then all you got to do is have a 2-0 weekend, and you're in the Final Four. So they've kind of figured it out. But I do want to talk about Baylor a little bit because I keep. And it's fucking driving me insane, Dave. I keep seeing people say, like, well, why are you putting all these caveats in for Baylor? And why are you saying, yeah, but they had this 2-week shutdown. Michigan had a shutdown. And they came back and they kicked Wisconsin's ass on the road. Well, there's 2 very, very important distinctions that you have to make about these 2 shutdowns. The first is that Michigan did not shut down because they had any positive cases within their program. Nobody on that roster tested positive. The reason they shut down is because the state of Michigan stepped in and said, okay, someone in that athletic department tested positive for a new variant of COVID, which is more contagious. So they said, closing everything down for 2 weeks. We're making sure that this doesn't get out. We're being ultra safe. You guys
Yeah.
can do your workouts in your apartment, whatever you got to do. Like, and yes, that's going to hurt your rhythm a little bit. And yes, it's going to hurt your, you're going to come back and maybe the handle's not going to be as tight. Maybe your legs are going to be a little bit gone. You're going to not quite have your wind, but you can do enough workouts in your house that you don't lose everything. For Baylor, 8 guys in that program caught COVID. 8 of them. 8 not just guys in the program, 8 players caught COVID. That's according to Jeff Goodman. If Jeff Goodman says so, like he did a huge big story on Baylor last week. If anybody knows, like Goodman knows, 8 players.
That's a lot of
COVID,
people.
and like obviously it's not like that. I don't want to get like too into the wormhole, rabbit hole of all that stuff, but like COVID is not going like it doesn't kill people that are that age the same way. It's not as dangerous, as life threatening as it is for people in college basketball age versus people that are like 70 plus, 80 plus. But that shit takes you off your feet for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. Like,
not to mention, you don't know what the hell could happen. Like 2 or 3 of those guys could have got pneumonia. Like 3 other guys. Like it's just like all kinds of stuff comes with that stuff. Comes with it. So
not only are they dealing with a 3-week shutdown where they had 2 practices coming back, they're basically starting over from scratch. Like Michigan was able to maintain it for the most part. Baylor's they're basically starting over when it comes to like their fitness level and how in shape they are and whether or not they have their legs and how long they can run. And like you can see that when they play, like their cuts weren't crisp, their jump shots were short and flat. Their rotations weren't there. Like when Baylor is late in rotations, like that's when you know that they're not right because the whole point of their defense, they have great individual defenders, but what makes their defense so good, they don't let you go middle. They force you to drive baseline. That help is there before you even realize the help is coming, right? They got the guy cutting off the next pass. They're zoning up, and their rotations are like this. When they get into scramble mode, man, I love watching them get into scramble mode because it's like, boom, lockdown, boom, close out, boom, close out.
Best defensive team in the country. It's not even close.
Yeah, so, normally, like when you get teams, I mean, Day, you know this. You're a coach now, you play. When you get teams in rotation like that, normally like that's what you want for an offense. Like that a bucket's coming. You're either going to get an open jumper or you're going to get a drive to the basket against a closeout, right? You don't get that against Baylor.
No.
And Kansas got it basically every single possession. So, I mean, I could reel off more stats for you, but let's leave it at this. They ain't shooting the way that they shot before the shutdown.
They got out rebounded.
Their offensive rebounding percentage is way down. They're not forcing turnovers at the same rate. Like they are not the same team. And I'm sorry for my little rant, but I'll let you go after this. But my biggest hope right now is that they are able to eventually get back to where they were before the shutdown. And I'm not totally convinced that they will be able to get there, man. Like they got a long way to go, long way to go. And it would really, really suck. And I would feel so bad for Scott and so bad for those players. Cause like that team, I know like you're a West Virginia guy, but like those Baylor kids are so likable.
Not a good. They seem like a really good group of guys, man. And I obviously, as a basketball player, you admire how hard they work, especially coming from like a program like that I came from, like where the team is predicated on defense and rebounding. I mean, you see a team do these things, like I mean, you can't help but like want them to do well because like you come from that similar background cloth in a sense. I pray that I feel like they're a good enough team that they can bounce back within a week or so. And this will be just like a speed bump. It's the thing is like if they had ran into Iowa State, like, well, actually, no, I'm tripping. Yeah, they already had that, but still, like they're to run into a team like that early on, like coming out of this, I wouldn't be too worried. But they ran into Kansas at home at Kansas, like I would be disappointed in Kansas they didn't come out there and win that game. Like that actually would have been more like shame on them. Now, obviously, we're like, oh, Baylor, it's Baylor. They're ranked up like number 2 in the country at the same time. They're coming back from this pause. And I mean, Kansas have been playing pretty well and they got the kinks out. Like, man, it is what it is, man. I think Baylor would be just fine. Though. Give them a week, 2 weeks, get their feet underneath them and
I hope so.
It's still the same team, I feel like, because they're not predicated just on offense, and they do so many other things in the court that make them the team that they are, and they're so deep. I don't foresee this being something that'll last too long.
I hope you're right, man. They got West Virginia coming up next.
Yeah, I
That's
don't think
not
they're
going to
gonna.
be
Yeah, I don't
easy.
think. Yeah, they're not gonna win that game. But still,
That's not going to be easy. So